This video is going to go over number 13 from the College Algebra Final Exam Review. It asks us to solve 3x squared plus 12x plus 2 equals 0. So notice this quadratic function, quadratic because it's ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0, is in singular form, so set equal to 0. So we're ready to start solving. When we solve these things, we usually solve by factoring. So our first step is factoring and seeing if there's a GCF. So 3x squared, 12x, and 2 don't have anything in common, so there's no GCF. So we know A is 3, B is 12, and C is 2. So we're looking for two numbers that multiply together to give me A times C. So 3 times 2 is 6. And the same two numbers to be added together to give me B, which is 12. So our options for two numbers that multiply together to give me 6, I have 1 and 6 and 2 and 3. Neither one of those two options can add or subtract together to give me 12. So that means nothing fits the criteria of these two conditions. So this is not factorable. Because it's not factorable, we have to find another method of solving this equation. So because it's a quadratic function, we can use the quadratic formula. We can use the quadratic formula. The quadratic formula is x equals negative b plus or minus the square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2 times a. So we already found the values of a, b, and c up here. So we're just going to plug those numbers into our formula down here. So I have negative b, so negative 12 plus or minus the square root of 12 squared minus 4 times a is 3, c is 2, all over 2 times 3. So now it's just a matter of simplifying. So I have negative 12 plus or minus the square root of 12 squared is 144. Negative 4 times 3 times 2 will give me negative 24, all divided by 2 times 3, which is 6. Keep simplifying. Negative 12 plus or minus the square root 144 minus 24 will give me 120 divided by 6. So all of my like terms are combined. All I can do now is I need to simplify this radical of the square root of 20. So, side note, we're going to try to simplify the square root of 120. So I need to break up the square root of 120. So I know 120 is 2 times 60. 2 cannot be broken up anymore, so it gets circled. 60 is 2 times 30. Again, 2 gets circled. 30 is 2 times 15. Again, 2 gets circled. 15 is 3 times 5. So underneath my radical, I really have all of the circled prime numbers of 2 times 2 times 2 times 3 times 5. That still gives me 120. Because it's a square root, I'm looking to take out 2 of a kinds. So these two 2's are coming out of the radical, just as 2. And then we're only left with 1, 2, 1, 3, and 1, 5. So those are all staying underneath the radical. So that 1, 2 came out. And underneath the radical, I'm left with 2 times 3 times 5, which is 30. So square root of 120 simplifies into 2 square roots of 30. Back up here, we have negative 12 plus or minus, instead of the square root of 120, we have 2 square roots of 30. All over 6. So, getting closer. Our last step is to simplify between the fractions. So I notice negative 12 and 2 squared roots of 30 both have a 2 in common. So I'm going to factor out that 2, just like a GCF. When I factor out that 2, I'm left with negative 6 plus or minus 1 square root of 30 all over 6, which can be written as 2 times 3. So that way I know those 2's cancel. I'm left with negative 6 plus or minus the square root of 30 all over 3. Final answer that cannot be simplified any further. So that is number 13 from the College Algebra Final Exam Review.